Kirk Math. Hello everyone and welcome to Module 6. We have started learning about ratios and rates. This is something that might be new to you. It is not something they usually go over in elementary school, but you will be using ratios and rates through the rest of your middle school math career there. So it's really important that we understand what a ratio is and a rate and how to use them. All right, so in this first lesson, our 6.2.1 Intro to Ratios, we're going to be able to define what a ratio is. You should be able to write a ratio 3 different ways, and you should be able to interpret ratios in their different models, because there's different ways to represent a ratio. All right, the first thing we're going to do is take a look at this vocabulary word right here, ratio. So a ratio is a multiplicative comparison. It just means that we're comparing two things using multiplication of two quantities. Okay, so I usually just say a ratio is a comparison of two quantities, but knowing that it is compared with multiplication is helpful. And ratios are always comparing two things that have the same attribute. So for example, you want things that are the same type. Basically, you could count them the same way or measure them the same way. So you could do like feet compared to meters. Those are both distances. We could do minutes compared to hours. Again, those are both time. We could do like number of items compared to number of items, and that's kind of where we have up here. So for example, we've got 2 dogs to every 3 cats. So because these 2 items are things I can count, I can write a ratio about them, and I can write them in words. That's the first way. So remember in our objectives, we're going to be able to write them 3 different ways. Well, the first way is in words. Okay, 2 dogs to 3 cats. The second way is with a colon, and you read it as 2 to 3. And the third way is as a fraction. So using the word 2, using a colon, or in fraction form, using that bar to separate 2 to 3. Now, the most important thing about ratios is that the way you read what you're comparing has to be the way you write it. So notice that it says there are 2 dogs to every 3 cats. And notice how every ratio is 2 first, then a 3. 2 first, then a 3. 2 first, then a 3. It's very important to keep your order the same with ratios. So they're similar to fractions in the fact that a fraction is a ratio comparing part to whole. But the fancy thing about ratios is that I could be comparing part to part, like part of food eaten compared to the part of food that's not eaten, or I can compare it from part to whole. Both of those kind of ways are true. And then the last thing we need to know is that ratios can also be written in simplest terms, or it can be simplified. Excuse me. So just like a fraction, I can simplify my ratios. So if I was keeping my dogs to cats theme here, and let's say instead I had 12 dogs and 20 cats, I could still simplify that just like I would a fraction and get 3 to 5. So if I had 12 dogs for every 20 cats, it's the same thing as having 3 dogs for every 5 cats. So they can be simplified just like fractions. Okay, that was a lot of information about ratios, so let's go ahead and write our ratios. So here I have a bunch of faces, and we're going to use them to practice writing ratios. So the first one we're going to write is a ratio of teeth to no teeth. So I'm just going to go ahead and count the number of people who are showing their teeth. Big grins, and the number of people or faces that have no teeth showing. So, teeth, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I see 9 faces with teeth I'm going to use the word 2. I could do a colon or a fraction bar and then no teeth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I have 9 to 15. Now, if I add those together, I would get 24 faces total. And let's just double check we counted correctly. So here I've got 3. And over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 by 8, that makes 24. So that's my total faces. And then my teeth to no teeth would be 9 to 15. All right, let's keep going. Now, if you want to pause the video and try it yourself, feel free. All right, I went through and did all of the ratios here. Now, some of these are a little tricky. For example, tongues are the little guys with the little tongues. They almost look like teeth, like a little tooth, but they're sticking out. Angry faces can be some subjective. I kind of counted anything that wasn't a purely happy face. But anyway, so if yours are a little different than mine, it's okay. The key is, though, whatever comes first has to be written first. So if you got 12 for big eyes, that has to go first. If you got closed eyes was 2 and tongues is 4, it must be 2 to 4. It can't be 4 to 2 because look at this one down here. So if I take these two ratios we already did, which is teeth to no teeth, and I go ahead and write it. So teeth to no teeth was 9 to 15 versus no teeth to teeth. Are these ratios the same thing? Well, no, they're not. And one reason why is because I can write these like fractions. And we know, just like fractions, that 9 over 15 is not the same as 15 over 9. These ratios, these comparisons are not the same. So order really matters. If you mix them up or reverse them, it is wrong. All right, let's continue practicing. Okay, so in this next one, it does say order in which a ratio is written is, we're going to put important to the meaning because it is. The order in which we write these ratios is important. All right, we have another example here. In the lunchroom, there were 100 milk cartons at lunch. When lunch was over, 80 cartons of milk had been purchased. What is the ratio of the number of milk cartons purchased to the total number of milk cartons? So the number of milk cartons that were purchased was 80. And then the total number of cartons would be 100. That's the total. That's kind of what they told us first. So I'm going to write it as a fraction. Whoopsie. So that we can kind of simplify, because if you remember, ratios can be simplified. So it would be 80 to 100, or 80 colon 100, or 80 with the word 2. And then if I simplify this, I would get 8 over 10. And if I simplify it even more, I would get 4 over 5. Okay, so my ratio is 80 to 100. Whoop, or 4 to 5. Okay, the second part of this question says, what is the ratio of the number of milk cartons remaining to the number of cartons purchased? So we're thinking there were 100 on the shelf, and then 80 people came and purchased milk cartons, or 80 milk cartons were purchased, so there were 20 left over. So the number of milk cartons remaining would be 20, and the number of milk cartons that were purchased was 80. So again, it's 20 to 80, or 1 to 4. Both of these would be true because this is simplified and this one's not. Okay. Here is a little game that you can play. So if you have your notes, or even if you kind of pause, and you could even make this on your page, but if you take a paper clip and you spin it 20 times, you'll get a tally of results here with the total number of spins, right? You would tally them up and you would get total spins for when it lands on A, B, C, D, and E. And then using that information, you're going to fill out these questions. So I'm going to pause and do it myself, fill in my table. And then when I come back, I'll give you an example of what to do. If you want to do it yourself, you're welcome to. All right, so I spin my spinner and I was able to get 5 A's, 3 B's, 6 C's, 2 D's, and 4 E's. So these are the numbers I'm going to use to answer these questions. What is the ratio of spins that land on B compared to spins that land on E? So I'm going to take my B number and I'm going to compare it to my E number. And that's it. Describe a ratio relationship based on your spinning in which the ratio is 1 to 4. Do I have a 1 to 4? Let's see. I don't know if I do. I have a 2 to 4, but that would not quite be right. 2 to 6 is pretty close. Oh, maybe if we add some numbers together. Let's see. Let me think about this for a second. Okay, so basically it wants me to find numbers in here that will make a 1 to 4 ratio. So 1 to 4 could also be 2 to 8 or 3 to 12 or so forth, right? These are equivalent ratios to 1 to 4. So we would figure out how could I combine these numbers to make a 1 to 4 simplified ratio. So I went with 3 to 12 because if you take the number of times I spun B and compared it to the number of times I spun C, D, and E comparatively, then you would get 3 to 12. All right, here's another one. It says, what would you need to spin in order to create a ratio of 3 to 1? So same thing, you're comparing here. So I'm going to look at things that are equal to 3 to 1. So it could be 6 to 2. I think I have one of those. That would be my C's to my D's would make a 6 to 2 ratio. And then it says, if you were asked to spin the spinner 100 times, what predictions could you make? Now, because my total spins here is 20, 20 times 5 is 100. So I could estimate that if I times everything by 5, that could be what my spinner would look like in 100 turns. So I might have 25 A's, 15 B's, 30 C's, 10 D's, and 20 E's. Okay, so that would be my answer here. It'd be an estimate, and hopefully you have, if you want to do it again, you can spin your own numbers. All right, we're almost done. We have a couple practice problems here we're going to get through. So Miss Johnson is decorating her classroom for fall. She has 5 red, 7 yellow, and 3 orange leaves to hang from her ceiling. Record the ratios below. So these are the ratios that I got, and I wrote them 3 different ways, with my fraction, with the word 2, and with a colon. So red to yellow is 5 to 7, orange to total is 3 to 15 total leaves, total to yellow is 15 to 7. My next practice problem is number tiles marked 0 to 9 are placed on a table. What is the ratio of number tiles with a value less than 2 to the total number tiles? So for this one, you might want to draw out your number tiles if you're struggling, because you have the number tiles 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's what this means right here, is from 0 to 9. So that means that there is a total number of tiles is 10, because you've got 9 plus that 0. Okay. Number of tiles that are less than 2 is only 2 of them. So our ratio would be 2 to 10 or 1 to 5. All right, and then this last one here has Yvette, looking at this picture, says that the ratios of triangles to hearts is 3 to 5. Is she correct or not? Hopefully you notice that Yvette counted her shapes correctly. However, the question asks for triangles to hearts, and Yvette just did it backwards. It should have been 5 to 3, and Yvette wrote her heart